Welcome everybody, I'm Dr. Sam Spinelli, physical therapist with Citizen Athletics, and today we're going to be going over jumping. Today's video is going to be focusing on the vertical jump. In a previous video, we went through 4 different strengthening based exercises that you can utilize to help increase your vertical jump. Today we're going to build off that and look at other options, primarily power-based movements such as jumps and a few different other exercises that you can utilize to help increase your vertical jump even more. Now, if you can smash that like button down below, it helps us out a lot. As well, if you want to see more content like this in the future, subscribe as we release one video at least every week. So let's get into vertical jumping. When we're looking at maximizing the vertical jump, there's a few things that we need. Number one, you need to be able to produce enough force in general to get very high. And that's where those strengthening based exercises came in that we discussed previously. The next thing we need to be able to do is produce force faster. Because our goal in jumping is to displace our center of mass as high as we possibly can, we need to be able to produce a lot of force to be able to overcome gravity and drive some acceleration vertically. Today we're going to show you 9 movements across 4 categories. Now, if you get creative, you can have way more options than just the 9 we're showing you. These are just ones that we picked that we think are the most beneficial within each category, but there are tons of different options. You just have to think about what's going to be best for you. Now, if you're looking for a program that takes these exercises, the strengthening ones, these power-based exercises, all of it and puts it together in a nice, neat package for you, check out the link in the description box below. We just released the first phase of our vertical jump program, which utilizes these different kinds of exercises and plans them out intelligently across time. Again, we'll have a link in the description box below for you. So the first category, static start jumps. We talked about how important producing force quickly is for the jump. And so what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be getting into the bottom position, either by doing a seated variation or by doing a paused variation. And then from here, producing as much force as quickly as we possibly can to get as high as possible. The first variation we're going to look at is going to be the seated box jump. What we're going to do here is we're going to be sitting on something. This can be a bench, another box, any option that's going to allow you to be able to start statically. From that seated position, you're then going to be driving up vertically, trying to maximize your vertical displacement. It's not about utilizing a very high box, but about trying to jump as high as you possibly can. The box just allows you to deload the landing. That way you have less impact force as you come down. You can use a little bit of a rock to start this. It's going to help you get your center of mass over your feet. As you go into this, really try to push through your whole foot, but then finish by driving through your toes as hard as you can. We really want to maximize utilizing our hips, thighs, and calves. Again, the focus here is not on how high of a box you can land on, but how high can you jump in general. Just use the box to deload that landing. A nice cue I give to athletes is often that your goal is to land with your legs almost straight. We want to have that small bend, that way we can land in a comfortable, controlled position, but the intent is there so that you drive to maximal extension. Now, the second variation that we're going to look at is going to be the paused squat jump. This builds off the same premise, but what we're going to be doing here is we're not going to have a box. We're going to be coming down to the bottom of a squat jump. We're going to pause there for about 1 to 3 seconds. The goal here is to help to reduce how much stretch shortening cycle we can take advantage of. And then from here, drive up vertically as aggressively as we can. Again, we're going to start that push through the whole even foot and then finish through the toes and try to really extend as far vertically as we can. From here, you're going to come down, land, and then you have 2 options for doing the rest of the repetitions. Either A, you can stand up and reset entirely, or B, you could land and come back down into that same position and then repeat for reps from there. One variation isn't necessarily better than the other. For most people, I do think that the reset option is actually better, as it allows you to set up and have a little bit more rest in between each repetition, maximizing the ability that you have on each rep. So that was our static start variations. Those are going to be really helpful for individuals who are highly elastic and can really take advantage of the stretch shortening cycle. The next ones we're going to get into are weighted jumps. These are really beneficial for helping to teach you to absorb force as you go into the bottom position, and then being able to produce a lot of force and work against resistance. For this category, you could basically pick any jump variation and add some weight to it. The premise would be the same. We picked 2 variations that we think are going to be the best options for most people. The first one is the goblet jump. What we're going to be doing for this movement is going to be holding a dumbbell or a kettlebell to our chest in a goblet grip position. What this does is obviously, number 1, add resistance to the movement. What it also does though is it removes our arms from the equation and forces us to help emphasize and maximize drive with our legs. Once you're set up holding that dumbbell or kettlebell to your chest, you're then going to descend down into the bottom position of your jump and then drive up aggressively. We want to keep continuing that same trend where we try to maximize the intent and the speed at which we produce force. As you come down, you want to try to absorb that impact, landing in a good position. You can repeat this just like we did with the squat jump with a pause, where you either come down, reset each repetition, or you come down and go again. Something that's important to note is the way that we come down into that bottom position of the jump. We don't want to go slow and then convert it over into a goblet squat into a jump. What we want to do is we want to come down with a controlled amount of speed so we're able to then convert over and go vertically with good intent. So we don't want to rush it, but we also don't want to be too slow. As you go to drive up, you're not going to have your arms. So this is where you have to really focus on pushing through your feet and having them drive and extend you as vertically as possible. This exercise is a great option for people who really utilize their arm swing and don't necessarily take full advantage of their legs. Our second weighted jump option is going to be the dumbbell box jump. For this movement, you're going to be holding on to 2 dumbbells, one in each hand, and then you're going to be going through a box jump just as you normally would. We're going to come down to the bottom position, jump up aggressively, and then land on the box. Again, the box's goal here is to deload the landing, not to jump on a super high box. So pick a height that's reasonable, that you can get on without any question, and you can land on in a relatively close position that you started in. What I mean by that point is that you can see during the descent, we come down about into a quarter to a half squat and then jump up and explode, and then we land in a similar position or higher. We don't want to start in a quarter or half squat, jump up, and then land in a full depth squat. That reduces the purpose of what we're trying to do in maximizing vertical jump potential. How much weight should you use? Well, we don't really have a distinct answer. It really depends. For people who are a lot stronger, they have the potential to use more weight. That doesn't necessarily mean that they should. Most of the time when we're doing these options, we're trying to maximize the rate at which we move, but just add some additional load to it. Not necessarily trying to turn it into a goblet squat or into some dumbbell squat. Instead, the goal is to still have it as a jump, but introduce some additional load to work on other characteristics, such as increased leg drive. Up to this point, we've covered 2 categories of jumps. Number 1, static starts. Number 2, weighted jumps. Each of these has generally focused on jumping as a whole, but they have emphasized how much force we produce a little bit more than how fast we produce it. In this third category, we're actually going to be emphasizing how fast we produce force more. This category is called elasticity. The goal with this category is to focus on the rate at which we produce force. So we picked 3 variations that maximize this and really focus in and are going to challenge you to do that. The first one is the depth jump to box jump. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to be stepping off of an object, coming down, making contact with the ground, and then producing force quickly to then leave the ground and land on the box. There are a few different ways that people will do depth jumps. Some people will come down, land, fully absorb the force, then jump out of it. That's not going to be the goal with this version. With this version, we're going to be stepping off, trying to produce force quickly to then leave the ground. We want to try to minimize our ground contact time here. You're going to be stepping off, coming down to the ground, having both feet make contact, and then looking to jump off the ground relatively as quickly as you can to then go up onto the box. That initial step off is going to help to load how much force you have to absorb to then produce quickly. This is a very beneficial trait to develop. You can see in the video that we're not necessarily using a very high object. Most people only need to use about 12 to 18 inches for a depth jump. Going any higher and you start to really emphasize absorbing force more than being able to transfer force. So start with a lower box, really emphasize being able to produce force and get onto that box. Again, you don't need to have a very high box to land on. The goal is to be able to transfer force and produce it, not land on a really high box. The second variation in this category that we're going to look at is the pogo jump. The pogo jump essentially becomes a repeated depth jump that focuses on our ankles. The ankles are very important structures to be able to absorb force and produce it quickly, and so we're going to be emphasizing that here. To do this, we're going to start off standing, do a little miniature jump to begin, and then our continuous jumps after that are going to be focusing on primarily only moving at the ankle. As you go, you're going to have that initial jump, come off the ground, come back down, trying to be in a relatively dorsiflex position, make contact, get off the ground quickly, and then repeat that process, emphasizing bringing the toes up, landing, driving off, and repeating each repetition. There's a few different ways that you can do pogo jumps. You can either do them for max height, you can do them for a quick rate, and somewhere in between. There's not necessarily a specific best way. For most people, it's good to rotate through different variations and spend some time developing them as a whole. Our third jump in this category is the tuck jump. To perform the tuck jump, what we want to do is perform it very similar to the pogo jump, except for now we're going to incorporate the knees and the hips to a higher degree. We're going to start off by jumping up, and then once you're in the air, you're going to bring your knees up towards your chest. This is going to help to emphasize some hip flexion, and it's also going to help to translate how high your legs move. This is valuable as we come back down. It's going to require more force to be absorbed and then translated into another elastic jump. This is going to be a valuable thing to work on, as when you're performing most athletic movements where vertical jump becomes important, we have to absorb force, such as while we're running and then jumping as we go into a layup or for a dunk. Similar to the pogo jumps, you can either do this for how high you go or how fast you go. There isn't necessarily a right way. Most people are going to benefit probably a little bit more from how high they go, but you could also do it from a rate perspective as well and then build your way up to a higher perspective across time. Our last two movements are in the same category, and these are power-based movements. For anyone that's ever seen Olympic-style weightlifting, they perform the snatch and the clean and jerk. These are movements that have been found to be extremely beneficial at helping people produce force quickly and have been shown to help transfer over to better vertical jumps. However, these movements are very technical and require a lot of practice to become proficient at. Instead though, we can take derivatives of them, like the two movements we're going to show you today, and not necessarily need to put a lot of time into technique and just immediately start getting benefits. The first movement we're going to look at is the one-arm dumbbell snatch. To perform this movement, we're going to be set up standing with one dumbbell in a hand in a stance width that's about where we would jump from. Then we're going to be coming down with the dumbbell, bending forward, bringing the dumbbell down between our knees, trying to keep a flat back as we do so. And then from here, we're going to jump up and accelerate, keeping that dumbbell close to our body, bringing that elbow up and out to the side, and then turning over and punching into the roof. How low you bring the dumbbell down in the descent is up to you. You can utilize different variations such as a high hang, a mid hang, and a low hang. None of them is necessarily superior to the other. Each holds a little bit of different benefit by working on different positions. As you drive out of the descended position, focus on keeping that dumbbell close and having a strong turnover, not letting the dumbbell get really far away from you. Now, the one-arm dumbbell snatch is a great option to work on developing power. However, some people still struggle with the technical components of it, primarily catching overhead. And this next variation that we're going to look at eliminates that, only being from the shoulders down. This is going to be the hang clean high pull. To perform this movement, we're going to recommend a barbell. However, you could perform it with dumbbells as well. You're going to be set up in a standing position, having a similar foot width as we did for the prior movement. And then we're going to bend forward, focusing on keeping that flat back, bringing the barbell down to about our knees, and then driving up assertively, trying to maximize force and intent. Once you make contact on your thighs, you're then going to push through your toes and continue accelerating up and letting your arms bend and bringing your elbows up and high. To learn this, you can begin by practicing the remaining deadlift, just starting at your thighs, coming down to your knees and back up. And then from here, you can start to layer on, having that contact and then up, and then introducing the ankle action as well. Across time, you can start to put more speed and more emphasis into it. This is a great option for a lot of people, as it doesn't require very much technical skill, and you can really work on producing a lot of force against a good amount of weight. So that's two power-based movements that you can utilize. These aren't necessarily the best ones for everyone, but these are good ones that don't require a lot of technical skill. So that's 9 movements that you can implement to start working on your vertical jump. Again, if you want a program that puts all that together for you, check out the link in the description box down below. Thanks for watching. If you could hit that like button down below, it helps us out a lot. If you enjoy this content, make sure you subscribe as we release one video at least every week. See you in the next video. Woo!